Hi class, I'm finally getting this video completed. So I wanted to quickly go over some of the highest points but from the last modules that you had, and I'm also going to go over a little bit out of module 3 just to point out, kind of to go over the site too to make sure you're getting the most out of the class. From that first module, one of the things that I want to point out that was I saw in the discussion was the use of the insanity defense. Just make sure you know that the insanity defense is used very, very limited. When you look at it, 1% of all the defenses that go to court attempt the insanity defense, and 1% of that 1% are actually successful. Many times now in most states, it's called guilty by reason of insanity or guilty by mental defect. And so what that means is that the defendant has to actually plead guilty to the crime and say, yes, I did it, but I didn't, I was under the influence, or I couldn't make the rational decision. And so therefore they're putting themselves out there on the court. They're saying I'm guilty. So if they are either found guilty or they're found guilty by but a reason of mental defect, and therefore they're sentenced to just depending on, it could be a dual sentence where they're sentenced to a mental institution for an indefinite period of time until they're deemed safe to community, and then they could be sentenced to prison at that point. So it really just depends. In the United States, to receive a sentence, an indeterminate sentence, which means that there's no set time. That means that it's up to the doctor to determine when they leave. Can really last for a lot longer than possibly a prison sentence. In the first discussion of that week, we talked about the perspectives, and many of you chose different ones, and I hope I gave you some really good comments on those perspectives. And just as long as, and I've said this in the comments, as long as you support what you say, even if I don't agree with you, that doesn't mean I'm going to take any points off. You just have to support what you say or what you believe with the research from the book or additional research. I was really impressed with most of the papers. I gave comments back, and it does say here it gives you the word count, and I know some of you don't like that, but I want you to have a limited word count so that you can really concentrate on what's the most important thing to say. A lot of people can write 4, 5, 6 pages and not say anything, and I want you to really be able to take out what you see as most important. And now to go over a little bit about Module 2, which discussed the police force. And as you read, our police force, and I know most of you know this, are our gatekeepers. They're our first responders. They're the ones that make it to that scene initially. And many times their decision on what to do at that moment can determine how the whole situation pans out. So for instance, with their discretion, they may pull up to something and think, oh, this is just a bunch of kids playing, we're going to move on. Or they could see, I see something there. There's a kid there. He looks like 16, but I've encountered him before. He's a possible troublemaker. He's involved in the gang. I'm going to take a stop here and see what's going on, find out possibly that they're committing a crime. So the police have a huge, huge job, and I fully support our police force. And yes, there are times, and I think it's come up in somebody's assignment, even they talked about police uh, police use of force and use of deadly force, and that's another determination they have to make, is what's the type of force they need to use to combat the situation that they're in. And sometimes they might overreact, but I can't imagine. Adrenaline's pumping. You come out to a crime and you don't know how many times is an officer shot for absolutely no reason. They walk up to, you've seen a highway patrol walk up to a car they've pulled over for speeding, and somebody shoots them in the face. So they're always on guard, and like I said, possibly they do overreact, but they have a huge burden on their shoulders. And so the first discussion, you talked about the warrant searches and how to arrest someone. And it's right, the discretion falls on them, and so they have to make a decision of one way or the other. And if they feel that there's an issue of safety, they will do a warrantless search. The emergence of professionalism. The police forces, and everybody really did well on this. A lot of the departments now, within the last 10, 15 years, have really been moving over to being more professional. And this also means that they're higher educated. You'll see that a lot of police officers here in the area where I live, Gray, Tennessee, Johnson City, Tennessee, I speak to them at the fairs, and most of them have bachelor's degrees. Many of them are working on their master's degrees. And it's just because it's an increase of that level of professionalism that the departments are now requiring. Let's see. Assignment 2. Everybody did really well on that assignment as well, and because everybody again picked a topic. And like I said, I noticed a lot of people picked community policing, and community policing is actually not a new term. It began in England, London, hundreds of years ago, and a lot of officers now, uh, depending on where they're assigned, have always used those ideals. They've been involved in the community. You see police officers living within their community, and I think that that's a huge advantage to letting the community understand exactly what law enforcement officers are going through. Another thing I read many years ago about police officers is a lot of time you see that they socialize within other police officers, and I think it's because they feel most comfortable being around people that understand what they're going through, their stresses, um, the depression that some police officers feel, the strain and the pressure that they receive. Also, home life is not always easy. They're gone long periods of time. So as I was saying, that means that's why police officers tend to usually socialize with other police officers. Okay, now I want to move to the module that you're in now. In this module, we've moved into talking about the types of courts. And there are the state courts, the federal courts, our Supreme Court, which is the highest court in the land, also called the court of last resort. And that is because, as I'm sure you're aware, once it gets to the Supreme Court, whatever they determine is a final. So if it gets there and if it makes it to the Supreme Court, which many cases are appealed to the highest court, but the court does not hear it. So for a case to even be heard is an accomplishment. As you know, there's a variety of people working in the court system. You have your judge, your prosecutor, you have your defense attorney. You also have, in many courts, which we're going to talk about in just a second, that I think you have on one of your assignments, are our specialty courts, our problem-solving courts, where it's more people are involved. You might have case managers, probation officers, um, social workers, counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists, and a lot of times in those courts, the judge is not is a part of the whole discussion. They're a part of the whole system, and they're really a facilitator there, and they're not there to make the only decision. They're there to ensure the decision is made and followed through. Let's see, where is that? I wanted to talk about that. Sorry about that. I didn't want to waste time reading the discussion that I wanted to talk about. And that is when we talk about the specialty courts, it is in the discussion. So you're to describe two specialized courts and explain why or why not you think they'll help with the court congestion. I have not read those yet, and I'm really looking forward to reading those. But I just wanted to tell you two now of my opinion is I truly support specialized courts, especially restorative justice. Those are can be restorative justice courts. We have domestic violence courts, drug courts, mental health courts, and these courts were created and designed to help the defendant. So if someone comes in, let's say to a mental health court, they might be diagnosed with a mental health illness. They also may not be diagnosed, but that could be why they committed their crime. So they go into these specialized courts where, like I said, you have all of these the stakeholders that are all there, from the police officer that arrested them, the judge, mental health advocate, could be the counselor, the social worker, psychologist. Everybody's there working together to help the defendant, and it's in the family as well. So everybody's on board. Let's get let's get Jane into a treatment center and get her help, and then we don't, instead of sending her to prison. And there is adequate research showing that recidivism is lowered. But I want you to recognize something. Specialized courts, recidivism is not a goal of specialized courts. It's to help the person. It's jurisprudence. It's to link the courts with social workers, with health workers, to help these individuals. It's not necessarily to reduce recidivism. If it does reduce it, that's just another plus. So I look forward to reading those this week, which were due on Monday. So as a reminder, next Monday will be your discussion board 2 for Module 3. That will be due. I look forward. I'm not going to comment too much on that since it's about plea bargaining. Let's see if there's anything else. If you have any questions, please, shoot me an email like some of you do. I wanted to say too, again, I do not want to reset quizzes. I've had a couple of people ask because of technical issues, but that's really not something I approve of. So I understand you getting kicked out, but if you look at the King website, I think the one you need to use is Google Chrome. That is the browser that is fully supports Blackboard and has the least amount of problems. I understand, like, if your electricity goes off, what are you going to do? But I can go in there and I can clear out your quiz, but you're not going to be able to retake the first questions. You'll have to just take whatever grade you have to that point, which I will. I'll go in, see how many you missed or didn't miss, and that way you don't have to retake those first questions. But as I said, that's just a last resort, and I really do not want to have to do that. Another thing, please review the video that I have on the APA citing. You can also look over here where the owl is, which is I put that in a lot of the comments. The online writing lab. If you pull this up and it tells you how to submit your paper, it also gives you the guidelines right here. And if you submit your paper, they will help you. Now they don't read the entire paper. They start off and they point out the things they see that you're doing wrong. Also, too, let me go back. Let's see. Oh, Upswing right here. Upswing is a great tutoring service for you, where they're actual tutors in whatever it is that you're looking for. So you log in and you can actually request the type of tutor you want in English or math, history. You could there might be some criminal justice, but you're not really interested in that. You're more interested in the APA and the grammar structure. So those are just right there on your page. Oops, I lost it. Let's see. Yep, I'm sorry. Let me pause. Okay, I'm back. Right here, and this is also too where you can chat with a librarian. When you go into the King Library in here, there's a little pop-up chat box that comes in, and it'll tell you if they're online or not, and you can ask them questions. You can ask them, see right here, you can chat with them and tell them, I can't find an article on criminal procedure. Can you help me locate that? Or where's a good website to go to for help on a video? But the librarians are extremely versed in all of this on the library, and they are there to help you. So please, anytime. That's the same thing with, like I've said before, with going to the OWL and Upswing. That's their jobs. They're there to help you and go through your papers. You can even send them a copy of your references and ask them, do these meet the APA 6th edition? And at this point, with assignments coming up on the third week, all assignments should be APA correct. I have done my best to point it out in every assignment. You've also, I've done the video on APA citing. You can also go here to Purdue OWL. and it pulls up the APA right here. Let's see. Here, go into your Purdue OWL. It'll give you the basic rules for the. Now, this is a different OWL than what I'm talking about for King. King has our OWL, our online writing lab. And there you're actually talking with professors of King. And here, this is just really a reference page, but it'll tell you here the basics of in-text citations for APA format. So when you pull this up, let's see, we're there yet. Okay. It shows you here short quotations and how to do it. I've pointed this out. If you have a longer quotation, you have to indent it. Anything over 40 words has to be indented. But it gives you examples right here of how to do this. So there shouldn't be any reason that you don't know how to quote according to APA. And another thing that I want to point out to you that's very important is plagiarism, is paraphrasing. You should always paraphrase what you read, what's in research, what's in your books. And when you paraphrase, you still have to cite that. So you would say, according to Black, in parentheses, 2017, specialty courts are very advantageous to offenders, period. You have read that, you took it from my wording, or you read it in my notes, or you read it in my research, but you put it in your own words. So you still have to give the credit of where you got that information. And it's the same thing if you read something in a research article and you get an idea that maybe within that they have done research on restorative justice juveniles in elementary school, and you said, you know what, I'm going to do that for my paper. You still need to cite them within your reference section that you have used them, because that's an idea that you got from them. Now there's a lot, I know there's some English professors, in fact I think I had a course it was a while ago, where my professor said, well, you have a citation in your reference section that you didn't use within your paper. And well, I didn't cite from it, but I read it and got ideas from it. But it's just interesting, some professors are, you need to put that in your paper. But anytime you use any reference, you need to cite them. So anyway, you can look at here, you can get types of APA papers, additional sources. You can also, when you go to the OWL, our online writing lab, you can get the guidelines and a pamphlet from them for APA that shows you all the examples. So there really shouldn't be any reason. I don't want to ramble on anymore, but I am sorry I didn't get this up earlier. I will, after we finish Module 3, I'll go over a couple things again. Also at the beginning of Module 4, I like going over and just letting you know what is the most important thing within the class. So again, when you reading Module 3, make sure you understand the difference in the courts, what court would hear what type of case, understand the U.S. court system and the functions. Also, too, remember that these additional resources right in here, when you go in here, if you see this, there's a flow chart that helps you. There's also another video about grand juries. There's these other sites that have been listed here for you. These are all additional resources that you still need to read. And anytime you do that, and put that within your discussion, or put it in your assignment paper, cite that you've read from that, and it always shows, especially to me, that you are reading the resources that we've put there for you, and even that you're required to do. It just shows you're doing that extra effort. And really quickly before I go, I want to explain the grading system a little bit. When you receive in the grading rubric that you notice for everything, because I do use rubrics in order to be completely fair and give everybody the same benefit. And many times, and I think I've done this with somebody where I put the wrong name, I don't read the names before I read the assignment, because I like to do it and just be open-minded and not think, okay, this person's made this mistake before. I don't want to do that. So I read the assignment first and make my comments. And then, of course, I go back and see the name and think, okay, this person, I need to remind them because they did this last week too. But wanted to remind you of how I grade. When you receive, if you get 100% or the 100% of a certain section, so maybe it's this, the APA is worth 20%. Well, now let's do something else. Let's say the content is worth 20%. For you to get a 20%, that means that you have gone above and beyond to add additional material to really support your work. That's the distinguished. If you get a proficient, that's because you're just meeting the requirements. You've just done enough. And that is not an A. Just doing enough is a B plus, an A minus. So just know that when you're looking at the grading system. For any professor, it should be this way. When you go above and beyond, that's the A. If you do just meeting the requirements, which is a B, and then average is C. So anyway, just a couple notes. If I can answer any questions, please email me anytime. You're welcome to call me. I did list a new phone number. Please call during the hours, and I'll do my best to answer or call you back. Hope everybody has a great week.